Welcome to the OK, Let's Learn podcast. This is two podcasts in one. One where we dive into tons of different topics, and another where we dive into tons of great stories and books. My name is Kevin O'Keefe. So today, OK, let's learn all about zinc. Yes, Z-I-N-C. Zinc. When you think of zinc, what is it? Is it that vitamin supplement? Is it what you've heard is in sunscreen? Or maybe you're thinking of it as a rock. Well, believe it or not, it's all of these things and much more. It's a fascinating, interesting tale about rocks and taking rocks and producing something that can be used here every day in any purpose and so many different purposes. So we got to start off with, what is zinc? Well, it's an element. What's an element? Well, an element is the basic building blocks of matter. An element is on the periodic table. I would go back to my episode on chemistry. Listen, when you talk about an element, you're basically talking about something that, like I said, you got to think of Legos. You're creating something. Each individual Lego is a different element, and it's a pure substance that consists of atoms, and each of these atoms have the same number of protons. So this episode is not not the place to talk about atoms, but just know that it's specific and it cannot be broken down into similar substances through normal chemical means. It's basically there, it's unique, and like I said, in atoms you have neutrons, protons, electrons, and this particular one has 30 protons, and if you look on the periodic table, it says Zn. So it shows up basically in three different ways: as a metal, as an ore, and in your body. So the metal, zinc metal, is a bluish silver metal. The ore, the zinc ore, is basically a rock that contains zinc. And the zinc in our body is basically a nutrient at the atom level that helps our body. Where does it come from? Zinc, yes, comes from the ground. It comes from underground rocks, and these underground rocks are called ores. And remember, when we're talking about rocks, we're just talking about a collection of minerals. So zinc is a specific mineral. So when you combine this zinc into a rock, you're talking about a zinc ore, a zinc mineral. Some of the common zinc ores, again, zinc rocks that are out there are primarily something called sphalerite. And yes, you have willemite, smithonite, and franklinite. Willemite and franklinite were mined in Franklin, New Jersey, not far from me. There's a Franklin Mineral Museum. We go on field trips all the time. There's a sister mine called Sterling Hill Mining Museum. And these mines for years, starting in the mid-1800s, right through the 60s, the 70s, they mined primarily, starting off, mostly iron. But then when zinc was discovered, zinc became a huge factor in World War II in terms of a lot of what we will discuss. But zinc became important. This iron that was turned into steel was used for casings in bullets. It was also used in casings for all these shells that were used in World War II. And up in Franklin, New Jersey, nearby me, again, these mines, they had a lot of zinc ore deposits, so they were bringing them up from the ground. So what was the zinc used for? Well, the steel rust, and that became a big issue. So this galvanizing process with the coating, zinc would be coated on these bullet casings, on these shells, over the steel to prevent them from rusting. So zinc became a huge raw material throughout World War II. And like I said, this mine, particularly up in Franklin, New Jersey, was running 24/7. Now, this is important. Zinc, when it comes out of the ground, it's not a pure, shiny metal like a silver, like a gold. It has to be roasted. Basically, it has to be turned from this mineral that's a part of a rock into this pure metal that can be used for industrial purposes. So how does it work? Well, obviously, the miners, they dig up the zinc ore. They then crush up the rocks into like cookie crumbs, and then they roast them. And the crushed ore is heated at really high temperatures. The zinc in the rocks, remember, they're always stuck to some other mineral in the rock. A rock is just a collection of minerals. So the primary zinc ore, like sphalerite, the zinc is actually stuck to the sulfur. Sulfur burns away with the roasting, and it turns the zinc into something that you could easily work with, which is then called zinc oxide. Basically, you're introducing oxygen into this process. With the zinc oxide, you heat it again, typically with carbon. Yeah, it's complicated, but this pulls the oxygen out and away, and what's left then? Pure zinc metal. What you need to understand about zinc is it does not come out of the ground, like I talked about before, as a pure metal. You need to process it. Now, for thousands of years, long before zinc was used in this process of making it a pure metal, people used zinc in China and India. They used it in combination with copper to make brass. Brass was strong, didn't rust easily, right? You got the zinc in there. It's easy to shape, and it really looks nice. Obviously, we still use brass today, whether it's a musical instrument, a door handle, a lock, coins, you name it. Now, it's only been recent since zinc became an element. It was discovered as an element, again, because it was mixed in with all these other minerals. It wasn't very clear that it had all these purposes. But it was 1746, and listen to this gentleman's name. Let's see if I can pronounce it. Andreas Sigismund Marggraf, a German. He was the one that actually proved that zinc was an element. Now, to digress just for a moment, getting back to Franklin, New Jersey, this mineral museum that I mentioned, we go on field trips all the time. It's the fluorescent mineral capital of the world. More rocks that glow with this fluorescent lights, this ultraviolet light. You put some of these zinc or rocks under a UV light, and you can go out on Amazon and get a simple black light that you can check out some of the rocks you have, whether or not they glow and whether or not they have traces of zinc in them. Well, you have willamites that under a UV light will glow apple green. You have zincite, which will show traces of yellow. Calcite, again, you got traces of zinc in that. That will glow a bright red, pinkish color. And finally, you have this mineral ore that's named after a town nearby, Hardyston. It's actually called Hardystonite. And that under UV light will turn violet blue. I will say this, there's nothing more interesting to get kids into science, to get kids into geology, than looking at these brilliant rocks that glow under UV light. Now back to zinc. We talked about the protected nature so it doesn't rust. So it's not just the uses that we had in World War II. Everyday uses, whether it's roofing materials, gutters, any buildings, you have this zinc coating. So again, it prevents rust, and even obviously cars as well. Now you may be thinking, how is it that, listen, you got zinc in your vitamins that you take. You've got iron in your vitamins that you take. How is it that a rock, what are we eating rocks? How is it that zinc, which is a rock, can be in our body? Well, here's the thing. you got to think of our earth as like a giant kitchen, right? And rocks are some of the ingredients in your kitchen. And your body is like the chef. Inside rocks are tiny pieces, like I mentioned, zinc, iron, magnesium. So when the plants grow in the soil, they absorb these tiny elements, right? The zinc is in the soil. It's absorbed into the plants. Animals eat the plants. We eat the plants. We eat the animals. So these same elements that are in nature, and yes, they're in rocks in the ground, they move into our bodies. Now, it's not like you're eating rocks, but at a base, tiny atomic level, right? A small trace of it ends up in our body. And we will talk about this, but zinc has important functions because without zinc in our body, we cannot exist. We cannot function. So let's talk about zinc in batteries. Yes, we're talking about the AAA, AA batteries that we all use. So a battery works because certain materials naturally react in a way that creates a flow of energy. Zinc is one of those materials. Every material that you have out there is made of atoms. Inside each atoms are electrons, tiny charged parts that circulate around the nucleus. Inside these atoms, they're called electrons. Well, some materials hold on to their electrons really tightly. Others, like zinc, let go of them more easily during a reaction. So what happens in a battery? Zinc is placed next to another material. That other material is manganese dioxide in these AAA batteries. These two materials are different in one important way. Like I said, zinc lets go of the electrons more easily, and the manganese dioxide pulls the electrons more strongly. So this transfer is called oxidation. Oxidation is when the zinc loses electrons during this reaction. That's it. Jasper, be quiet. So let's connect everything. Zinc reacts with the materials inside the battery. During this reaction, the zinc loses the electrons. And yes, this loss of electrons is called oxidation. The electrons move towards manganese dioxide. That movement is the energy that we use, and that is how a battery works. Zinc is used in batteries because it undergoes oxidation. It loses electrons, and that movement of electrons to another material creates usable energy. Interesting. Zinc, now you know all about not only how a battery works with zinc, but you also can hear my dog barking in the background. So let's wrap up our podcast not only by talking about how it's used as a nutrient and as an important element inside our body and how we function, but other industrial uses. What else is it used for other than protecting materials so they don't rust, and other than being used in batteries? Zinc is used in sunscreen. The primary ingredient is zinc oxide. You basically take the pure metal zinc and you vaporize it really high temperatures, and then you introduce oxygen to this mixture, and you've got zinc oxide. This is the primary ingredient that we find in our sunscreen that helps us, literally protects us from the ultraviolet rays of the sun. And listen, when I was growing up, this sunscreen was this white coat material that would just stay on your skin, but they've formulated it so that today it's a nice water-resistant protective barrier. And zinc is the big ingredient. Where else is it? It's in shampoo. It's in toothpaste. The toothpaste is all about the zinc that's added because it can help control the bacteria. It can prevent the tartar buildup on your teeth. It can help prevent that bad breath. Yes, zinc is used in toothpaste. It's also, like I said, in shampoo. Why? Why in shampoo? Well, you've got dandruff, specifically dandruff shampoo. Zinc is an important ingredient because the dandruff is often caused by irritated skin, which is like this natural fungus on your scalp. So the zinc helps calm the skin, it reduces the flaking, and it controls that buildup. So zinc also, deodorant. Yes, again, helping with controlling the odor. How does it do that with deodorant? Well, sweat itself doesn't smell. Bacteria breaking down sweat is what creates the odor. So with the zinc, what does it do? It slows down that bacteria and it reduces the smell. And yeah, here's some other uses you would never know. If you got babies, you got zinc and diaper rash cream. Again, it's about protecting the skin because it's gentle, it's soothing, and it forms a barrier on the skin, which helps keep the moisture away, and it helps irritate the irritated skin and makes it heal. Now, finally, to wrap up the podcast, we've talked about this in the beginning. Zinc is in our body. It's a nutrient. It isn't just something we use. It's something our body needs. Okay, a nutrient. What is that? It is something that our body needs to grow, stay healthy, function properly. We get it from the food we eat. It's broken down in our body, right through our cells and our blood, and it's delivered throughout our body. But this is an important distinction. Zinc is called a mineral in science, but when we talk about zinc in our body, we talk about it, as I said, as a nutrient. So what does it do? Well, it helps our immune system. It helps our body fight off illness. It supports the cells that detect and attack germs, our white blood cells. It helps our body repair cuts and injuries faster with the platelets. But it's not. This is important. It's not the platelets in the white blood cells. It's not all about zinc. Zinc just is one of those little tiny workers that includes the proteins and the enzymes that help them function. Basically, zinc is needed for every part of the system, the immune system, to help do their jobs. Zinc is not, if it's not with us, we are not getting better as we get sick. That's basically the important thing to know. And actually, as I mentioned with the platelets, this is interesting. The platelets actually stop the bleeding, right? That part of our blood that stops the bleeding, but the zinc comes in and it helps rebuild the damaged skin. So to wrap up our podcast, let's talk about a few more interesting facts about zinc. Hey, it's the fourth most used metal in the world. Our body contains about 2 to 3 grams of zinc. Zinc can be recycled forever without losing its quality. And we talked about this, but ancient Romans used zinc in coins without even knowing it, right? That protective quality, that anti-rusting quality. There is this zinc deficiency that affects a lot of people worldwide. It's used in fertilizers to help plants grow. And it's fairly common, but it's definitely not one of the most abundant elements on our planet. It actually ranks 24th, they say 24th or 25th most abundant element on our planet. Basically, that's not rare, but it's far less common than other elements like oxygen or iron. The main ingredients. Listen, this is important to know. The main ingredients, most common elements, are oxygen, silicon, aluminum, and iron. They make up most of the rocks that you see. You've got some other ingredients like calcium, sodium, potassium, magnesium. But the trace elements, but the important ingredients are zinc, copper, iodine. So zinc exists in a lot smaller amounts, but they're obviously important. And this is a better way of thinking about it. If the Earth was 100,000 atoms, oxygen would be 46,000. Silicon, yes, silicon. Talk about a future episode. 28,000. Iron, 5,000. And zinc, it's only about 70 or 80 atoms out of 100,000 on our planet. So it's everywhere, but it's in tiny amounts. So it's concentrated in certain rocks. That's why we can mine it. We can get it out. And even the tiny amounts that we can get out, we can use them for coatings, batteries. Certainly, it's important in our body. Hey, most of us don't know what it is, what it's used for, but I hope now you have a better appreciation and understanding of where it comes from out of the ground, why it's important. It really is like this powerful spice. The small amount that's out there does play a huge role in so many materials that we use on a daily basis, and certainly really important inside our body. Friends, thanks for taking this journey, learning all about zinc. Reach out to me at kevmok21@gmail.com. We have a Facebook group called OK Let's Learn. It's in the links in the podcast notes. We also have a YouTube channel, so go subscribe, hit the bell to get notifications. You can listen to our podcast on YouTube. Any podcast platform, you hit that plus sign in the top right-hand corner in Apple Podcasts. That will get you the notifications for any new episodes. So friends, until next time, have fun and keep learning.